Section 2. Non-commissioned years. The policy at that time was allow any college graduate or promising student out of high school with superior grades or the right connections to enter prestigious military colleges that virtually guaranteed a commission upon graduation. The requirement of mandatory non-commissioned field experience before application to officer training schools was instituted only later, when it became clear that such officers would be responsible for irreplaceable military assets and personnel, and, in the Covenant War, the lives of millions of civilians on the worlds they protected. Preston Cole was one of the first admirals to implement such a policy, saying, "Those not blooded in combat have no business leading men and women into battle." The just graduated Preston Cole, age 18, had neither the grades nor the connections to attend such officer training academies, so he enlisted as a non-commissioned recruit in the Navy. He was ordered to Unified Combined Military Boot Camp, UCMB, and then shipped up elevator for 6 additional weeks of vacuum and microgravity training, colloquially known then, as now, as BARF School. Upon his graduation as crewman, Recruit Cole was ordered aboard the CMA Season of Plenty, assigned to atmospheric reclamation maintenance duty. Excerpt: Preston J. Cole's Military Service Enlistment Application, September 21st, 2488, Military Calendar. Why do you want to enlist? Answer in 100 words or less. Humanity's future is among the stars. There is no single more important thing than to help men and women build new lives on distant worlds. I have no illusion that this is some manifest destiny, but rather, it is the only logical place left for humanity to evolve. I plan to be a part of that, learn as much as possible, and then one day, become one of those humans on some distant world, on a little farm of my own, under a night sky full of stars that I've never before seen. Evaluation of Cole, Preston, J. UNSC Service Number 00814-13094-BQ by Petty Officer 2nd Class Graves, LP. UNSC Service Number 00773-04-652-KK. UCMB CR Largo, November 3rd, 2488, Military Calendar. Completed all requisite physical tests? Yes. Displayed any mental aberrations? No. Combined arm skills test, CAST, 78, above average. Combined physical skill test, CPST, 65, average. Great New Wallace Hierarchical Aptitude Score, GWAS, 94, exceptional. Remarks: follows orders without question beyond what is required. Keeps mouth shut, shows initiative, hard worker. How often do you see that these days? Move this kid onto NCO track before someone makes him a damn technical specialist or we lose him to OCS. 11:20 hours, September 22nd, 2489, Military Calendar. Colonial Military Administration Seasons of Plenty, Sol System Luna, High Orbit. Bridge log, video, spatial enhancement, true. The tiny bridge of CMA Season of Plenty had view screens and workstations crammed on every square centimeter of wall, with auxiliary stations on the ceiling and floor in case the rotating segment failed. The screens would have provided a simulated panorama of stars had they not instead been crawling with icons representing colonists, building supplies, and the raw materials to jumpstart the new city dubbed Lazy Acres, on the hellhole of a world called Paradise Falls. 6 ensigns manned their stations, checking and rechecking every gram of mass and fuel, and balancing the energy flow of the reactors in preparation for launch. They barely had enough room to turn without bumping into one another, save Ensign Otto Steinman, who stood aft of the captain's chair at Lorelei's interface pedestal. The artificial intelligence hologram stood half a meter tall. Like all holograms, Lorelei's outer appearance reflected a chosen inner personality, a woman wearing a toga, a sickle in her belt, and a wreath of wheat crowning her head. She once again shook her head at the young ensign. Simon crossed his arms over his chest. "We're not done." He towered over the diminutive hologram, 2 meters tall, handsome, and his dark hair short, but stylishly wavy. "We may not be done," Ensign Lorelei replied, "but I am." "My apologies. I have scheduled a self-diagnostic to run before the jump." The hologram vanished. Simon pounded a fist into the console. Ensign Alessis Indra tore her gaze from the mass balance matrix on her screen. "Batteries up, Simon. You're on to break it." Next to her at the fusion monitoring station, Ensign Hartford muttered, "Maybe it's Simon's breath. These new smarter AI are supposed to be sensitive to everything." Lieutenant Commander Neville stepped onto the bridge. In his mid-30s, he had already had that casual air of, don't mess with me, that most officers couldn't achieve until they were released captains. The ensign's all stood a little straighter, but kept on working. Navigation reports no input parameters yet, Lieutenant Commander Neville said. What's the hold-up, Simon? Simon flushed, not with embarrassment, but with anger. Sir, Lorelei has shut herself down for routine maintenance again. Neville raised an eyebrow. Well, we were warned it might take a while for her to come fully online. Reboot the backup intelligence and get those calculations. Neville paused, looked Simon over, and then told him, on second thought, this would be a good opportunity to brush up on your Shaw multivariate calculus, ensign. Do a rough calculation by hand. The captain expects to be underway in 90 minutes. Simon opened his mouth as if to protest, then said nothing. And then finally, aye, sir. Neville wheeled about and left the bridge. Insight Indra whispered, I think Neville has an antique slide rule tucked away somewhere if you run out of fingers to count on. Simon growled something unintelligible, grabbed a datapad, and stabbed in calculations. After a minute of this, he looked among his fellow ensigns, all of whom were busy with their own work, till he spotted a young crewman, or rather the backside of a crewman that protruded from open access panel to auction recycling intake. Goal! Simon barked. Get over here. Crewman at Preston Skull extracted himself from the narrow crawl space, stood, straightened his gray overalls, and ran a hand over his shorn hair, which was dotted with drips and spatters of grease. The fresh out of barf school crewman looked alert and eager to please. His dark eyes met Simon's and didn't waver. Yes, sir. Simon shoved the datapad at Cole. I need you to run an independent check on these numbers. Cole's gaze moved to the datapad. He swallowed. In case you don't recognize them, they're parameters for a Shaw-Fukugawa manifold collapse. Cole nodded and took the pad. You do know what a Shaw-Fukugawa manifold is, don't you, crewman? There was a dangerous glint in Simon's eyes. Cole didn't look up from the pad, still studying its contents. Yes, sir. Good. If you get stuck, just look up the formulas on a workstation. With no further explanation, Simon picked up his coffee mug and strolled over to Indra. Cole took the datapad and sat at a nearby station, saw not moving his stare from inside his equations, but now frowning at them. He tapped in a few parameters, sighed, and erased them. You're cruel, Indra whispered to Simon. And in hot water if the lieutenant commander finds out you're not doing your own work, Hadford added. Cruel? Simon mused. Isn't that what crewmen are for? He looked over at Cole. Don't worry about the lieutenant commander. I already have the rough calculation done. So why pick Cole? Indra asked. He gets his work done and doesn't bother anyone. He bothers me, Simon added. Never shows any proper respect. Did you see the way he looked at me? And he's always got his nose in some library access terminal, too. Reading ancient history or quantum field theory or stuff he couldn't possibly understand. It's so obviously an act. I still think it's unnecessarily cruel, Indra said. Lieutenant Commander Neville stepped onto the bridge. Simon instantly pretended to be double-checking the seat stock in holding bay 4. The AI pedestal lit and Lorelei flickered upon its surface, the lines of her face smoothed into the features of someone just waking up. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Commander. All primary and secondary neural links checked. Shaw-Fukugawa parameters calculated, and 3 times 3 checked. All systems go. Season of Plenty ready for slipstream space transition upon the captain's orders. Very good, Neville said. He spotted Simon and added, Oh, and link to Ensign Simon's datapad and check his work, please. Simon strode over and whispered to Lorelei. I thought you said you had to run a self-diagnostic. I did, Lorelei admitted, but that's not all I did. I'm not an idiot, Ensign. The AI blinked and then announced to Neville in a loud voice, His calculations are correct, if not crude. The input parameters would have gotten the Season of Plenty there, albeit 160 million miles off course, and pathing through a brown dwarf. The lieutenant commander frowned at Simon. Ensign, report to the captain that the Season of Plenty is shipshape and await his orders. Simon sulked off the bridge, but as he passed Ensign Indra, he whispered, What about Cole? He's still working. Let him, Simon muttered and left. A moment later, the order came through the bridge intercom to transition into slipspace. The bridge officers remained busy for the 5 hours until the shift change, and it was only then that Lieutenant Commander Neville noticed crewman Apprentice Cole still working at an auxiliary workstation. Crewman, what precisely are you doing? Cole looked up. His eyes were ringed with fatigue. When he saw Neville, he immediately stood at attention. Sir. Finishing the slipstream space calculations, Ensign Simon ordered me to double-check. The lieutenant commander's face contorted with anger, disgust, and finally, a hint of amusement. Very good. His gaze fell onto the name tag of Cole's jumpsuit. Crewman Cole, I'll take it from here. Dismissed. Yes, sir. Cole gathered his tools and left the bridge. Neville chuckled and retrieved Cole's datapad, then halted, gazing intently at its contents. He moved to Lorelei Station. Did you help the crewman with this? The datapad flickered as Lorelei interfaced. No. The AI paused for a full half-second. How intriguing. It is indeed a Shah-Fukuja manifold calculation, but uses a method I have never before encountered. Is it correct? Yes. Even good for a crude approximation, but highly impractical. It would take far too long for a human to implement such a method, and I have far superior algorithms at my disposal. Neville looked again at Cole's equations. But let me get this straight. This crewman actually came up with a new way of calculating input parameters? That is correct. Lieutenant Commander Neville traced his fingers over the multi-dimensional imaginary space calculus on the datapad. His face hardened. Find Ensign Simon and have him report to the bridge. I need to remind him of the level of mathematical expertise we expect of our officers on the Plenty.